I stand here on behalf of the freedom-loving members of the Republican Study Committee, the conservative conscience of the GOP conference, and the largest caucus with over 150 members, and our friend and fearless leader, Jim Banks from the Hoosier State. And Mr. Speaker, we come to this chamber with grave concerns, with profound grief over what's happening to this great nation at the southern border, along the border of states like my home state of Texas. My citizens are on the front lines, and the citizens of the Lone Star State and border states are at ground zero of this self-inflicted crisis. And just because the president won't acknowledge that there is a crisis doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Mr. Speaker, it is raging out of control. It is an unmitigated disaster. And as I said, it is self-inflicted. Reinstating catch and release while we're recovering from a pandemic? Are you kidding me? We've put mandates and restrictions on the American people who have sacrificed by staying at home. Some have lost their jobs. They don't know how they're going to make ends meet for their family. Everybody stepped up, Mr. Speaker. They did what they were told to do in some cases, but they all acted responsibly for the sake of our country and their fellow man and the country that they love. And now we're just letting people cross our border illegally, violate our sovereignty, break our laws, and then just be released into the interior of our country with no testing, no screening. In Texas, Mr. Speaker, we're coming back. We got folks back to work. Kids are in school. My kids are in school. We feel normal again. And we're blessed to be in a state that puts a premium on individual liberty and personal responsibility. And we've worked hard to get to where we are now. And we didn't like everything that was done to us by our government. We didn't like all the protocols and mandates, but we did the best job we could for the sake of our fellow Americans. And now we have the potential for a flare-up in the pandemic because our hospitals are going to be overwhelmed again. Our schools are already overwhelmed as they try to do right by their students. Let them come into the classroom, have that support structure, knowing that to close your doors on these kids is to close a bright future for them. It's to lock them out of their greatest potential and to give them grief and all kinds of heartache and mental health concerns. And now we've got our police who've been disparaged with cries of defund the police. They would be dismantled if the bill that passed the House, supported by the Democrats, ever became law and ripped the tools that they have to not only keep our community safe, but to protect them in the process. We have stripped them, or would, if the bill passed, of their legal liability protections. All the while, we are putting more pressure on our local law enforcement to do the job that the federal government under this commander-in-chief has failed to do. The commander-in-chief is supposed to provide for the common defense. He is supposed to be the exemplar for rule of law. He is the chief enforcer of the law. What kind of example is our president to just throw caution to the wind and to let folks come into this country who are not our citizens, prioritizing them over the safety and health of our citizens? I got to hear some of my colleagues express concerns over women's rights and protecting women from abuse. We all support that, and our hearts go out to any victims of abuse in this country or in any country. But meanwhile, because of the policies that have been passed by this president, reinstating catch and release, empowering sanctuary cities, repealing the stay in Mexico policies, halting funding for the border wall, all of these things have sent a message that we're open for illegal business. And if you ask the cartels, business has never been better. We're lining their pockets while they exploit vulnerable people who are hopeless. And they are being exploited, Mr. Speaker. 1 out of every 3 women are sexually assaulted on their trek to this country. That statistic is from the Doctors Without Borders. Children are used as a passport, trafficked by these cartels. We have empowered these cartels. This is a disaster on so many levels, and I'm glad my colleagues are here to express these same sentiments in their own words. But Mr. Speaker, I believe, and I'll end with this, and I'll yield time to my colleagues, it is clear there's a cause and effect here. It is clear policies have consequences. They incent behavior, and the behavior is causing chaos at the border. I believe this president is obsessed. When I ask why, this is just the fundamental question. Why would our president allow this to happen? Well, I believe he's obsessed with undoing anything that has the name President Trump on it, regardless of its merits. And I believe he's equally obsessed with placating the left and their radical agenda. I have come to that conclusion. But we're going to speak to this, we're going to tell the truth, we're going to lay out the facts, and we're going to call on our president to do the right thing and prioritize the American people and their safety and security.